For a long time, emotion was never alone. It never arrived by itself. It came with explanation, with justification, with a story that formed almost instantly. If sadness appeared, the mind rushed in to explain why. If irritation surfaced, there was an immediate search for a cause. If joy arose, it was labeled, measured, and often held too tightly. Emotion was rarely allowed to be just emotion. It had to mean something. It had to say something about you, about your life, about where things were going. The feeling itself was only the beginning. What followed was interpretation, and interpretation changed everything. A brief wave of sadness became a problem to solve. A flash of anger became a concern about character. A moment of joy became something to preserve or repeat. Emotion didn't pass cleanly. It got tangled. But as the inner narrator quiets, something unexpected happens. Emotion starts arriving without a story attached. It still appears. Nothing about feeling is suppressed or avoided, but the automatic narration doesn't follow. There's a pause where the story used to be, and in that pause, emotion behaves differently. It moves. It has a beginning, a middle, an end, not because it's managed, because it's not being explained. At first, this can feel disorienting. We're used to emotions being signals, used to asking, why am I feeling this? What does this mean? What should I do about it? So when a feeling arises and none of those questions appear, there can be a sense of uncertainty. Is this okay? Am I missing something? But the feeling doesn't need reassurance. It doesn't need interpretation. It's already complete. Sadness can exist without becoming a narrative about loss. Anger can exist without becoming a judgment about right and wrong. Joy can exist without becoming a demand for permanence. Emotion without a story is surprisingly simple. It's sensation, energy, movement. It doesn't point anywhere. It doesn't require action. It doesn't define identity. It passes through like weather. This doesn't make emotion weaker. It makes it cleaner. When there's no story attached, emotions don't accumulate. They don't stack on top of each other. They don't blend into moods that last for days. They arise, express themselves, and dissolve. You might feel sadness in the morning and neutrality by noon, without wondering why, without needing to connect the two, without feeling inconsistent. This freedom from continuity is important. Stories create continuity. They link emotions across time. They say, this sadness connects to yesterday. This anger is part of a pattern. This joy must mean something is changing. Without story, emotions aren't required to connect. Each one stands on its own. And because of that, none of them become overwhelming. This changes how you relate to difficult emotions. Before, discomfort triggered urgency. Something feels wrong. I need to fix this. I need to understand this. Now, discomfort is allowed to exist without being labeled as a problem. You feel it, you notice it, and you don't rush to solve it. Not because you're indifferent, because there's nothing to solve. The feeling isn't a message, it's an experience. This can feel counterintuitive. We were taught that emotions are indicators, that they carry information we must decode. Sometimes that's true, but often, the decoding creates more suffering than the feeling itself. Emotion without story doesn't mean emotion without intelligence. It means intelligence operates differently. The body knows how to process feeling. It doesn't need narrative assistance. When you stop explaining emotion, the body finishes the process on its own. Tears may come and go without commentary. Tension may rise and release without analysis. Energy may surge and settle without explanation. Nothing gets stuck, because nothing is being held. One of the most noticeable changes is how quickly emotions pass. Not because they're suppressed, because they're not fed. Stories feed emotion. They replay it. They justify it. They give it reasons to stay. Without story, emotion has no reason to linger. It completes its cycle naturally. This doesn't make you emotionally flat. It makes you emotionally fluid. There's movement instead of stagnation. Emotion becomes part of the moment instead of something that defines the day. This also changes how you relate to others' emotions. Before, someone else's feeling often triggered your own internal story. They're upset because of this. This means something about me. I should respond a certain way. Now, you can meet emotion without immediately interpreting it. You listen. You stay present. You respond when response is needed. But you don't add layers. You don't take on emotional responsibility that isn't yours. And you don't avoid connection either. Connection becomes simpler. There's less emotional management, less trying to fix or resolve. You're just there. This presence is often more supportive than explanation ever was. Emotion without story also changes how you experience vulnerability. Before, vulnerability was often tied to narrative. If I feel this, what does it say about me? If I show this, how will it be interpreted? Now, vulnerability is just openness. A feeling appears, it's visible, and it passes. There's no identity attached, no conclusion drawn. You don't become someone who is sad. You don't become someone who struggles. You're simply someone who felt something, and that's allowed. This loosening of identity is key. Stories about emotion reinforce identity. They turn feelings into traits. Without story, emotion doesn't define you. It visits, then it leaves. You remain. There's also less emotional forecasting. Before, one feeling could trigger worry about future feelings. If I feel this now, will it get worse? What if this doesn't go away? Now, there's no reason to forecast. The feeling is happening now. That's all that's known. And because previous feelings have passed cleanly, there's trust. Trust that this one will too. This trust isn't optimistic. It's experiential. You've seen feelings come and go without intervention. So there's no panic when one appears. You don't brace. You don't resist. You don't escalate. You let it move. This creates emotional resilience without effort. You're not strengthening yourself against feeling. You're allowing feeling to do what it does naturally. And because of that, it loses its threat. Emotion becomes less dramatic, not less meaningful, less dramatic. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't demand attention. It doesn't dominate awareness. It's just part of the moment. This is especially noticeable with joy. Joy without story is quiet. It doesn't say, "This is special. Remember this. Hold on to this." It's felt. Then it passes. And because it's not clung to, it doesn't create longing. You don't miss it. You don't chase it. You don't compare other moments to it. Joy becomes something that visits, not something you pursue. This actually makes joy more frequent. Not because you seek it, because nothing blocks it. The absence of story removes pressure. You don't need emotion to justify your life. You don't need it to confirm progress. You don't need it to mean anything. Feeling becomes allowed again, natural, uncomplicated. This doesn't mean reflection disappears. You can still reflect on emotion when useful. You can still communicate feelings. But reflection happens after the fact, not during. It doesn't interrupt the experience. It doesn't override it. It simply adds context if context is needed. Most of the time, it isn't. Living with emotion without a story attached feels grounded, stable, not because emotions stop, but because they no longer destabilize identity. You're not defined by what you feel. You're not directed by it either. You experience it fully, and then you move on. There's a quiet confidence in this. Not emotional control, emotional trust. Trust that feelings can exist without needing explanation. Trust that they don't require action. Trust that they don't signal something is wrong. They're just part of being alive. This changes the texture of living. Days feel smoother, less jagged. There are fewer emotional peaks and valleys created by interpretation. What remains is a steady rhythm. Feeling arises, feeling passes, life continues, and in that continuation, something settles. A sense that you don't need to manage your inner world. It manages itself. As long as you don't interfere, emotion without a story attached isn't numbness. It's clarity. It's allowing experience to be what it is without turning it into something it doesn't need to be. And from here, another quiet shift becomes visible. Silence that isn't special, which is where we'll go next.